Hello, welcome to Ukrainian Connections. My name is Cathy Harris, Katrusha Harris. I welcome you to our show where we share different Ukrainian connections about Thunder Bay, Northwestern Ontario, and Canada, where we talk about artifacts, history, our stories, a whole bunch of really cool things. So we're glad that you're here to join us today. In each of our shows, I like to showcase different artifacts in behind, some that are antique, some are new, some have been brought from Ukraine, some have been made locally, and they all have something to do with the topic of today's show. So today we're going to be talking about something very special, and with that we have our guest today, Zenya Puchalski. I'd like to introduce you, and thank you for joining us today. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. Thank you, Katrusha, for inviting me to your program. So I was born in Fort William, which is now Thunder Bay. I'm a first-generation Ukrainian, Canadian, and I grew up in a household with two brothers, and we spoke Ukrainian at home. My parents taught us the language, the traditions, the cultures, and it was upheld by us going to the Ukrainian churches where we would go to Ukrainian school, yes, after our regular school. And then we would participate with SUM, Spilka Ukrainska Molodь, or Ukrainian Youth Association, where there was history, there was dance, singing, plays, and then followed by that, we would participate in educational, recreational programs at Camp Karpaty. So it was a wonderful experience growing up, very varied. My mama came from a little village called Nestuke by Zolochiv. My tato, or my dad, came from a city that was called Korchin. And it was a beautiful little city, both in Western Ukraine, in Lvivsky Oblast. So the story goes that my parents immigrated here in 1950, after the Second World War. They had a very early start, so they were teenagers, young teenagers, when they had to start running for their lives. They were separated from their family, and so they went through many trials, tribulations, devastations, as many people did when they went through that war. Eventually, they were in prisoner of war camps where they met, and then on discharge from that camp, they stayed in Austria for a little bit, moved to England for 5 years, got on a boat, came across the ocean, came to Canada, found their way to Cloud Bay, and then ended up starting their family in Fort William. They were very proud to be Canadian citizens, and they instilled in us the value that Canada was a great place to live. So that's their story.
That's their story, and that's your start. I think that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So talking about customs and traditions, one of the customs that I know you and I have been doing for quite some while is making Korovai, Ukrainian wedding breads. Mm-hmm. And I'd like you to share some of the information you know, and you continue to learn about them.
Certainly. Korovai is a passion that we have. As Cathy said, we started many years ago making Korovai. It is a beautiful ceremonial Ukrainian wedding bread. So just to give you a brief overview, we're going to go into certainly more discussion about it. But so it is a rich bread that is a little bit stiffer so that you can braid the bread into a circular fashion. And it is circular to show that it is an eternal circle of life. There's no breaks in it. So the bread is baked, and then once it's baked, decorations. It's filled with decorations. And in different parts of Ukraine, as there are different diaspora, we have differences in culture or traditions. So you may find that some of your culture differences prevail. We will share with you what we have learned, and it was an interesting journey, what we have experienced and what we've learned, and we'd love to share it with you today. So just to let you know, Cathy and I have been making Korovai for a number of years, and when we first started, we just enjoyed it so much because we were at a time where we were able to now share it. Cathy and I both had Korovais at our weddings, and so it was a joy that we were able to finally reproduce that and share it with people. Cathy took this step a little bit above of our Korovai making, and she actually had people come in who were interested about making Korovai, wanted to learn about it, wanted to participate in making it. So she created this wonderful group of people who now come together for weddings, and when we have a reason to make a Korovai, we have a wonderful time just doing it. So thank you, Cathy, for doing this, and we are now called the Thunder Bay Korovai Collective. So thank you. So let's talk a little bit about who makes the Korovai. So typically, the Korovai is made by family and friends. And in some regions in Ukraine, if the oven would not fit the Korovai or isn't cooking evenly, then they may take it to a bakery to have the Korovai done. It's similar as we do in North America. So if you need specialized baking, you would ask a bakery to do it. So in many villages in Western Ukraine, the Korovai, the bride and the groom will have their own Korovais. So what happens with the wedding ceremonies is that very often you have a starosta. A starosta in the wedding terms is someone who has a place of honor in the wedding party. So it could be a godparent, it could be a friend of the family, could be a family member. So they're designated to carry the Korovai on a rushnek. The rushnek is an embroidered piece of cloth that has very special meanings and ritual meanings. And we'll get into those later on. So the starosta would carry the Korovai to the church and place it by the ikonostas. The wedding carries on, the ceremony is complete, the couple is now married, the Korovai will appear at the reception, and at the reception, there is a privetanya. So the Korovai is presented to the bride and groom. This very special ceremony is very endearing, and the Thunder Bay Korovai Collective also uses the at this time uses the explanations of what Korovai is and what the decorations are. So it enables the guests to know what the significant meaning of the Korovai is.
So let's come back in a moment and we'll talk about that meaning with Zenya. Thank you. Welcome back to Ukrainian Connections, where today's guest, Zenya Puchalski, is telling us about the Ukrainian custom and traditions about Korovai.
We have for you today this beautiful Korovai that was made by the collective, and it's, as you can see, a three-tiered Korovai. Did you want?
So can you tell us about what each of these decorations mean?
Sure. The Korovai has deep, tremendous, rooted ceremonial significance, almost spiritual meanings. A wedding korovai can be different layers. 1 or 3 layers are the most common. The shape of the bread is circular, implying an internal relationship made by braiding the dough to signify the joining of the couple's lives together. Their new lives are intertwined. Some couples prefer simple, less elaborate korovai, and some like it very decorated, even adding ribbons or some live flowers. These decorations are baked separately and added to the bread after it has cooled. Some of the korovanitsias, named for a professional korovai maker, bake the decor right onto the bread before it's finished in the oven. These 2 different styles have very unique looks, but very beautiful in their own right. The decorative pieces symbolize all the blessings that are essential to a good marriage. Flowers are made to symbolize beauty. Pine cones represent fertility. The 2 doves that sit on the top of the bread symbolize the bride and the groom. The groom has his wings ready to protect the bride. Other doves on the korovai represent the community that supports the couple in their life ahead. The branches, or the hills, represent future growth of love. Beads represent unity and beauty. Wheat represent prosperity and fortune, that the couple will survive any struggles. And the salt on top is a wish for purpose, passion, and spice in their life. A wreath of periwinkle, or barvinok, and we're going to do a shout out and thank you to Hanusha Tzachuk, who has brought it in, and it's usually a spring flower, is added to represent a strong connection that will bind the couple together. A sprig of myrtle, or mirt, and thank you to Hanya Svornik, who's provided us with that, for everlasting life, and that's what it represents. The korovai is set on an embroidered cloth called the rushnek. The embroidered threads remind us how we're all interconnected in a community. The rushnek is used for many celebrations and found in Ukrainian homes, such as adorning icons, and we have one at the back, pictures, or as runners. The rushnek often travels through a person's life, through birth, baptism, at a wedding where they stand on the rushnek for the ceremony. They bind their hands at the ceremony to signify that they are one now, and they walk with their hands bound, and very often, sometimes it's accompanied even to funerals. The decorations of the korovai were made today by Thunder Bay's Korovai Collective, a group that has been formed for well over 10 years.
And just a shout out to a few girls, Ali and Hadley, who helped make the actual bread that the decorations are set upon. So we'll be right back to tell you a little bit more and show you how to do this. Welcome back to Ukrainian Connections with guest Zenya Puchalski, teaching about Korovai. And just so you know, we're ready to make some stuff. So we've donned our hustena and our little aprons, fartuk, and we've scrubbed up. So we're ready to show you how to handle the dough. So first of all, Zenya's already started making some little birds and they're doves, and we've got one in the making right now. So she's taking a long tube of dough, and we will include the recipe in the credits. So if you want to make this dough, it's a basic dough art dough that you don't really want to eat once it's baked because it's very hard, and it's not made to be flavorful. It's made to last a long time, and it's made to hold its shape. So she's trying to put a nose on her little dove. It's looking more like a beak of a duck. Sometimes we've ended up with some Korovai birds and doves that look like platypuses and owls and every other kind of species of bird, but that's okay. Once they're baked, we decorate their eyes with just a marker, or you can put little eyes on them before they're baked with a dab of water and a poppy seed or a clove. Here, we'll just put this one on the cookie sheet. So she's fanned the tails on it, so it looks like a bird, and I'm just gonna fix this beak a little bit. Oh boy, okay. It's a duck now. And Zenya already made a rose here, but if you want to just show what you're doing with your fingers here, she's taken a bunch of circles. And we actually find that bottle lids tend to be the best size circle on these, unless you have a cookie cutter. So she's tightly rolling up the dough and to get a bit of a rose look, and it has to have sort of a flat bottom so that it'll stay upright on the pan. And so she's going to cut a little bit of that off. And next she's going to show us how she's braided 3 pieces of dough to make a bit of a braid. And she's going to cut little wedges basically out of it to give it the appearance of wheat. Very simple to do, but extremely effective. And it's nice to lay some of this baked on the bread.
Drying out.
Yeah, it's drying out quickly as we talk and prepare. And while she's doing that, I'm going to take a piece of dough that I've already cut the edges on, and I'm going to wrap it around a stick. So I could make this very tall and long or short. And this is what we put on the other bread that we call the hiltze, which means branch, or the tree of life. And when you bake it, you actually have to stand it upright. I use a little metal colander so that it doesn't lay down and burn one side of it. So this is
a very thick.
This is a very thick wheat, very thick. It's actually quite pretty. It looks like a fern. You want to show them that? Yeah.
This way.
Yeah, whichever. Okay, and then I have a little medallion-looking thing here that's going to be a leaf, and so I'm just going to cut in here while Zenya tells us a little bit about how we plan and prepare to make korovai.
So Cathy had mentioned already that the art dough will be on the credits. The recipe for the korovai, the actual korovai, will be listed on the credits as well. So it's very rich in eggs and butter. And so the tradition is that the korovai is made by 7 happily married women. And each of them bring with them an egg from their chickens, milk from their cows, and flour that has been milled from their grain. Now, we ask that when we come to the Korovai Collective, that we just have happy women coming and that none of us have cows, so we sort of say, well, anybody can bring an appetizer or a beverage if you'd like. While making the korovai, we're not to gossip and only to have positive thoughts. So all this energy goes into the making of the korovai. And so we've already touched on how we're making the korovai decorations and out of the dough art. And before you put them into the oven, you already put them away, they need to be have an egg wash put on them. So when they have the egg wash, they come out of the oven. You have to work very quickly and insert the toothpick into them so that you can use the toothpick to put into the korovai that we had shown you previously. Or you have to string the beads very quickly while it's hot so that you can have your roll of beads.
And just to comment about that, most people that are helping with korovai try to avoid stringing the beads because it's really hot. And I find if you hold the bead with a tissue and then poke it through, it's a lot less painful. So a secret so that you don't avoid a fun job. So how about we assemble our one tier korovai now?
Beautiful.
Okay, hot out of the oven. Whew, the camera crew can smell the beautiful baked korovai. Okay, so while I put some stuff, so these are the trees of life, or hiltze. I'm going to put these in here. And Zenya, do you want to tell us a little bit about what we've done in Thunder Bay with Heimers and stuff.
Certainly.
Mm-hmm.
So for most of us who are in the Korovai collective, it's important to us because we like to share our customs and keep the traditions alive. For 2 years now, they have participated in making a showing, a Korovai showing at the Heimers Fall Fair, organized by Nadia Maihal, who is a member of the Korovai collective. We have over 60 members. Can you believe that?
It's
60
great.
members in the Korovai collective.
So if we only need 7 happy people to show up at each time we make them, that's
absolutely. But usually it's crammed, right? We usually have a kitchen full and dining room full of people happily making their decorations and giggling and laughing as we do so. We've made over 50 Korovai, mostly for weddings, but also for anniversaries and significant birthdays. So some people ask, how do you preserve a Korovai? And what happens with the Korovai? So traditionally, some at the Korovai, after the presentations and after the wedding, some brides and grooms will share the Korovai with the guests at that time. Some will do it at Popravine the day after celebration. And geez, you can't just have a wedding in one day. You have to have a celebration, right? So they will share it there. Some people prefer to dry it out, and you have to be meticulous about drying it out because it is fresh bread, so you have to dry it out very slowly so that there is no mold. Some people will keep just the decorations. So there's a few ways of handling the Korovai later on.
So I'm just going to say a little bit about what I'm doing here. So I'm trying to assemble a Korovai, and usually when we do that, we look at which is the nicest face of the bread before we start decorating. Does this look the most balanced if you look at this as your front? And then start assembling the bread as a front and a back. And so the bride and groom, so we brought with us a few of the decorations already baked, and we have 2 grooms here. So I think I'm going to pick the little guy. Who kind of has a swan head. He's an interesting little dove. And then this little female bird for the bride, the little female dove, and just put them in the front here on top of some of the merte that we have. And I've already put some daisies in and some little poppies. And it was only this year that we learned how to make the poppies when Nadia came from Ukraine, one of our new members, and taught us both how to braid barvinok differently and how to make these little poppies. And I've got some leaves on here, the trees of life, and Zenya's just filling in a little bit more greenery. And these little guys are called chrysanthemums. And if they've got a longer stem to them, we call them pine cones. So everything has a little name to it, which makes it a lot of fun because everybody can learn how to make different shapes and use different shapes on their Korovai if they want. So I think we could probably add a few more birds onto this.
Looks great. And some people, depending on the individual choices, they will put ribbons on here, they will put fresh flowers on here. So there is a lot of variance in the decoration of the Korovai.
Yeah. Here's an example of a simple flower that you could take and just put it, they don't break off easy.
Yeah.
There we go.
Do that.
You could just put it underneath where the bride and groom are, or underneath the individual pieces of dough art, just to give it a different color or a different look. And there we have, and just hope this doesn't go flying off. There we go. I don't know, does that look balanced to you, Zenya?
Yeah, from the front it does.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, good, good.
Just do a little bit more here.
So there's so much more to learn about Ukrainian customs, traditions, and Korovai and Ukrainian weddings per se. So I really appreciate you coming today to share with us what you know and what you've learned and experienced. And I'd like to thank you for doing that, and all the people who gave us items to use today in our show, and all the hands of the Korovai Collective that have helped make decorations that we've been using for so many weddings over the years. And Zenya suggests that we actually do a show about Ukrainian weddings, because that could actually be a whole series. I went to a Ukrainian wedding, or several Ukrainian weddings in Ukraine, and they were well over a week of organizing and celebrating and having an amazing opportunity to see so many beautiful traditions. So that's a great idea.
We should talk about the pidoshva, how they break it.
Oh, right. Do you want to show it?
Sure.
Okay.
Why not? Why not? So there is a custom. Very often when it's a three-tiered layer, then they will take the bottom half of the korovai, and there's a custom that the bride and groom will see who ends up with the bigger piece, because that's the person who is going to
be the boss, wear the pants in the household, whatever you have it. Now, Zenya and I are not married to each other. We are married, but we're not married to each other. But we're going to show you this custom because it's a lot of fun. And we'll see who's the bossiest, okay? But first, together, there's a hole in the bread. So together, we look through it together, okay? And we see our future, and we make wishes for our future. And then we have to put our hands equally on each side. Wait. Is that right? You got one?
Yeah.
No? Okay, I think that's fair. Okay, she's stronger than I am. Ready? One. Wait, count in Ukrainian.
Okay, раз, два, три.
Whoa.
Oh! It's a tie.
I think our husbands can attest to this. So thank you very much for joining us today on Ukrainian Connections. Slava Ukraini.
Heroям слава.